Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
I can't breathe. My chest tightens, and my eyes sting from the stale air. I'm standing in our bedroom. Dark, silent, thick with a weight I've never felt before. It's past midnight, but sleep is a cruel stranger right now. The comforter is half torn off the bed, pillows scattered on the floor. My heart's pounding like I just sprinted a marathon, but all I've done is wake up to a nightmare in my own home. I flip on the lamp, and the dim light reveals everything I don't want to see. The empty space where Sarah's shoes used to line up, her dresser drawer slightly ajar with nothing inside. I remember how she would leave the closet door open just enough to torment my sense of order. That door is open now, but it's not the same. Something is missing. Something bigger than shoes or clothes. It's my trust, my pride, my sense of who I am. It feels like I'm choking on the air. I walk to the window, push aside the curtain. The street below is quiet, not a car in sight. When did my life turn into this silent vacuum? A week ago? A month? No, it's been 8 months if I'm counting right. The moment she left, she cut out the lights in my world. I let out a breath, but it's ragged, forced. Her side of the bed is cold, a place I can't bring myself to lie in. Sometimes I reach over at night out of old habit, searching for the warmth of her skin, but all I find is emptiness. The memory of that cursed day creeps into my mind like a thief. She was laughing, telling me to keep a little packet of salt in my pocket, so I'd remember her every time I touched it. Salt is like tears, she said, pressing it into my hand with a mischievous smile. And like lies, sharp, bitter. Never forget. I'm always with you. I had laughed with her then, not realizing how badly those words would haunt me. Now that small packet weighs 1,000 pounds in my pocket, reminding me how wrong I was to trust her so blindly. I shuffle around the room, picking up one of her old notebooks. The inside cover has her name scrawled in neat letters. Sarah Robertson, my wife. I drop it, not sure if I can bear seeing anything else with her handwriting on it. I'm not angry yet. I'm just numb. Anger might come later, maybe when I can afford to feel something. Right now, it's the numbness that's saving me from falling apart. I decide I can't stay in this room. Each breath feels like shards of glass scratching my throat. I grab a sweater from the chair and head out to the living room. The hallway is dark. Photos on the wall appear like ghosts. One of them shows Sarah and me on a fishing trip with her father, back when we all smiled easily. He's old now, stuck in a nursing home because Sarah found it inconvenient to take care of him. I used to visit him more often, but we drifted apart. Sarah made it seem normal to push him away. My jaw tightens at the thought of how she abandoned him for her career, for her self-obsession. I flick on a lamp in the living room. Light reveals the same disorder. Mail scattered on the coffee table, the couch cushions upturned from my restless nights. It's not just chaos. It's a reflection of me, a man who lost his anchor. I sink into the couch, feeling the old leather groan under my weight. I can still picture her lying here, laughing at some silly video on her phone, sometimes reaching out to touch my arm. When was the last time she did that? A message notification pings on my phone. I snatch it like a drowning man grabbing a rope, hoping for something, anything, to keep me afloat. It's from a friend who just found a new job and wants to celebrate next weekend. I can't think about celebrations. I swipe the notification away. Then I see the old message chain from Sarah, last active 8 months ago, the day she vanished. My chest heaves. I open it, scrolling through the final words she sent me. I need time. Don't call. I remember how I tried to call anyway, multiple times, until her phone went dead or blocked me. She never offered an explanation. She never said goodbye. I toss the phone onto the table, but it slides off and lands on the rug. I leave it there. I'm not strong enough to pick it up right now. Instead, I stare at the ceiling. The shadows dance across the plaster like silent accusations. I think about how everything unraveled so fast. I never saw the clues until it was too late. The first time I realized something was off was when she started coming home later from her marketing agency. She'd snap at me for trivial things. A dish out of place, a question about her day, a suggestion for a weekend trip. Then she started spending nights away. Business conferences, she called them. She had an air of excitement about her that didn't match the frustration she showed at home. It was as if two different Sarahs were living side by side. I told myself it was just stress. I tried to be supportive. But every time she canceled a dinner plan or a family visit, I felt an invisible wedge driving between us. I hear a faint hum from the fridge. Everything else is eerily silent. My pulse throbs in my ears. I remember how, 3 weeks after her disappearance, I sat alone in this same living room, refusing to call the police because some piece of me believed she'd come back on her own. But she never did. Then came that cursed moment of discovery, stumbling upon a TikTok video late at night. It was forwarded by a random acquaintance from her marketing circle, someone with misguided pity. "Hey, is this your wife?" That text, that link. My gut twisted into knots when I opened it. Even now, I can't erase the images. The clip was dark and shaky, but I recognized the silhouette of my old boat, a small vessel moored near a remote inlet we once frequented. A man's voice in the background, mocking, triumphant, made another man's wife happy. Then the camera focused on the deck. The blanket was spread out, the same red and black checkered blanket Sarah and I used for our weekend picnics. I saw the curve of her back, her hair undone, the way she arched into him. Soft moans, a muffled laugh. Her voice whispering promises, but those promises weren't mine to hear anymore. They belonged to him. My heart hammered like it would rip out of my chest. I recognized his face then, Alex Freeman, a freelance designer I'd seen once at her office party. Broad shoulders, confident grin, that casual arrogance in his posture. The camera wobbled, but it was enough to show them entwined. Her arms around his neck, her leg hooking around his waist. The video wasn't pornographic in the strictest sense. It was brief, but explicit enough to leave no doubt. I could almost taste the betrayal on my tongue, bitter as the salt she once gave me. That night, I wanted to smash my phone, burn every reminder of her, scream loud enough to tear the walls down. But I did nothing except stare at the screen, letting the tears flow in silent rivulets. I let myself drown in that shock. A man doesn't cry, they say, but that night I couldn't hold it in. She was out there with him, mocking me. And I was here, alone, gasping for air as I am right now. I shift on the couch, remembering how I tried to get a hold of any friend or family member who might know where she was. Her sister, Emily, claimed ignorance. Maybe she just needs space, Emily said, but I detected guilt in her voice. She knew. She was covering for Sarah. Even the neighbor next door, a woman who always seemed to watch the comings and goings on our street, suddenly clammed up when I asked that she'd seen Sarah leave. Later, I found out she had glimpsed Sarah sneaking out at odd hours with a suitcase but said nothing. She never wanted to intrude. Right. A half-truth to justify betrayal by silence. Months passed. No word from Sarah. I fell into a routine of going to work, burying my frustration in tasks, ignoring the pitying looks from colleagues. One day, a coworker named Ron approached me quietly. He said he recognized Sarah's lover from some corporate event. He also mentioned that Sarah once framed him, Ron, for a mistake at the office, purely to secure her own promotion. He never forgave her for that. His anger was fresh and real. I started piecing things together. Sarah was stepping on people to climb her ladder. She was forging alliances for personal gain, and I had been blind to it all. Then came the final straw. I visited her father in the nursing home, a man named George who used to be so full of life before old age pinned him down. He was alone in a plain, cold room, no pictures on the walls, no fresh flowers. "Why doesn't she come?" he asked me. His voice was frail, his eyes watery. I had no answer. She said she'd visit soon, he mumbled, but that visit never happened. She abandoned him like leftover trash that didn't fit her new life. Something snapped inside me that day. All the sorrow, the heartbreak, the confusion, it morphed into a quiet, smoldering anger. That's when I decided to act. I couldn't just wallow in misery. I needed to face her, to bring all the secrets into the light. I started planning how to gather the people she had hurt. Not to stage a dramatic ambush with accusations hurled across the table. I wanted something colder, more final. A silent reckoning. Now, perched on the edge of this old couch, I recall every detail of how that confrontation came to be. I called Emily first. I said I knew everything, that she'd been covering for Sarah. Emily didn't try to deny it. She sounded frightened, more for Sarah than for herself. But she agreed to come meet me if it would finally settle the chaos. Next, I reached out to the neighbor, a reluctant participant, but she owed me for her silence. Then Ron, who jumped at the chance. Finally, Sarah's father, though it was tricky to arrange transportation from the nursing home. Yet he accepted the invitation. His voice trembled with a sorrowful relief. He wanted to see Sarah, even if it meant facing the shame of her betrayal. A day later, we all gathered in my house around my dining room table. We sat there, 5 people bound by Sarah's string of lies. Emily stared at her lap, fidgeting with the ring on her finger. The neighbor sipped water, not meeting anyone's eyes. Ron tapped his foot nervously on the hardwood. George, Sarah's father, hunched in his chair, eyes distant, as though bracing for a blow. I felt my own heart pounding, unsure how this would play out. We waited in silence. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Then Sarah walked in. She froze at the sight of us. I watched her expression shift from confusion to dread. She didn't need an explanation. She understood. In that moment, I saw her mask crack. Her posture stiffened, but she tried to keep her composure. She looked at her father, then at me, then at Emily. Nobody spoke. I could see her swallowing hard, searching for something to say, some clever excuse or justification. But no words came. She knew we had the knowledge. No more illusions, no sweet talk to paper over the damage. We just stared, one by one. The neighbor with quiet reproach, Ron with anger, Emily with betrayal itched on her face, George with heartbreak. Finally, I reached into my pocket and pulled out that little packet of salt, the same one she'd given me. I placed it on the table, gently, right in front of her. The crinkle of the packet was the only sound in the room. She looked at it, then at me. Our eyes locked. I remembered how she'd said, "So you'll never forget." In that moment, I realized she was the one who forgot. Forgot loyalty, forgot her father, forgot me. I saw a flicker of some emotion cross her face, maybe regret, maybe shame, maybe nothing but shock. Still, no one spoke. There was no need. We all knew. We had all felt her deceit in different ways. She tried to mouth something. An apology, a plea. I couldn't tell. My throat felt tight. I almost wanted to shout, to ask why, to demand an explanation. But I held back. A heaviness pinned me to my chair, and words seemed futile. She glanced around the table one last time before turning to the door, as if to flee. But I wasn't finished. "Sit down," I said quietly, each syllable a razor in the silent air. She turned slowly, her eyes darting from my face to the packet of salt. She took a seat, stiff as a statue. Emily looked ready to cry. Ron was gripping the edge of his seat. The neighbor folded her arms tightly. George just stared at his daughter, tears forming at the corners of his eyes. I cleared my throat. I saw the video. I said, my voice almost mechanical, "On the boat. I know about Alex." Her lips parted, but I held up a hand. "Don't. I'm not here for excuses." I inhaled through my nose, trying to maintain control. "You destroyed what we had, Sarah." She opened her mouth, the color draining from her face. "I never meant." "Don't," I repeated, calmer this time. It scared me how steady my voice was. I looked at her father. He waited for you. Days turned into weeks, turned into months. You never called. George shook his head, silent tears slipping down his cheeks. Sarah blinked rapidly, as if trying to hold in her own tears. She couldn't hide from the truth anymore. Ron then leaned forward. You lied about me at work, cost me a promotion. I kept my mouth shut for too long. Sarah cast her eyes down. The neighbor fiddled with the edges of a napkin. I saw you leave with your suitcase, she said quietly. I should have told David, but I didn't. Emily reached across the table, wanting to touch her sister's hand, but Sarah pulled away. That small movement spoke volumes. Silence wrapped us again, suffocating any attempt at redemption. I wanted to say so many things, how her betrayal felt like a knife in my gut, how the memory of her words about salt stung every time I reached into my pocket. But I couldn't form them. My anger was overshadowed by a sense of finality. She had stepped away from the marriage, from her family, from every bond she once had. Now we just sat there, drowning in the quiet truth. Sarah's phone buzzed. The sound jolted everyone. She glanced at the screen, then hastily shoved it into her purse. I wondered if that was him calling. Alex, the man she gave herself to so brazenly on my boat, under my own blanket, at my special spot by the water. My jaw clenched. Slowly, she stood up. Nobody stopped her. She walked around the table to where her father sat and tried to rest a hand on his shoulder, but he flinched. She pulled back, tears finally shimmering in her eyes. I felt my own chest constrict, recalling the nights I spent staring at the walls, how I once adored her more than anything. She tried again, her voice breaking. Then she just gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement that words were useless. She took a few steps back, looked at me, then at the salt packet. Her gaze lingered there as if it were an embodiment of all her guilt. I reached out and slid the packet closer to her. It crinkled again, like a final farewell. She snatched it up, her hand trembling. With one last, haunted look around the table, she turned and walked out the door, the echo of her heels fading down the hallway. None of us moved to follow. When the door clicked shut, the air in the room changed, as if we could all breathe again. Emily exhaled shakily, tears rolling down her cheeks. George tried to wipe his own tears, his hand trembling. Ron shook his head, a bitter satisfaction in his eyes. The neighbor stared at the tabletop, as though words might appear to explain everything. I stood up and went to the window. The street outside was dark, a single lamppost illuminating the emptiness. I spotted Sarah's silhouette crossing under the streetlight, her shoulders hunched as she clutched her purse. She paused as if sensing my gaze, but never looked back. Then she vanished beyond the reach of the light, swallowed by the same darkness she left me in. A rush of emotions threatened to overwhelm me. I fought to keep them down, forcing my breathing to stay even. My father used to say, "A man stands firm, no matter the storm." Yet at this moment, I felt like a flimsy reed, battered by the whirlwind of betrayal. Still, I didn't let the tears come. Not now. I had done enough crying in private. I turned to face the group. "Thank you all for coming," I murmured. Emily nodded absently. Ron patted my shoulder. The neighbor offered a small, sad smile, and George just stared at me with hollow eyes. We helped him stand, guided him to the doorway. "I'm sorry," I whispered to him. He shook his head slowly, as though the apology was unnecessary, or maybe it was too little, too late. Within minutes, the others left, drifting out into the night one by one, each carrying their own part of this broken story. I closed the door behind them, the latch clicking with a dull finality. Alone again. I leaned against the door, collecting myself. My mind drifted back to that tick-tock. The scene of her body pressed to his, how she moaned in a way I thought was reserved only for me. It tore me up inside. A scalding jealousy, a deep sense of inadequacy. I felt I had failed as a man. Was he stronger, better, more exciting? The question poisoned me every day. Now there was no illusion left. She chose him. She chose her own ambition over family, over love, over everything we built together. I walked to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, and pulled out a glass. My hand shook slightly as I poured water. Each swallow was forced, as though my throat was lined with shards of regret. Setting the glass down, I stared at my reflection in the window. My face looked older, the lines etched deeper. Maybe I aged a decade in the last 8 months. That's how it felt. I stepped outside onto the front porch, letting the night air wash over me. The wind rustled the trees, carrying a faint smell of salt from the nearby waterfront. Salt. I remembered the times Sarah and I took the boat out, drifting under the stars, laughing at silly jokes, sharing dreams. It was all a lie, or maybe it was real once, and she turned it into a lie later. The difference hardly mattered now. I sank down on the porch step, resting my elbows on my knees. The darkness was strangely comforting, like a blanket that could hide my shame, my hurt. I could almost hear the lapping of water against the hull of the boat in my memory, see her hair blowing in the breeze, her laughter echoing in my ears. Then that same boat turned into a stage for her affair. The bitterness hollowed me out. I don't know how long I stayed there, lost in thought. Eventually, the cold forced me back inside. I locked the door, turning each deadbolt with finality. The house felt even more empty than before, but it was my sanctuary now. No more illusions, just me and my pain. I slept fitfully that night, if you can call it sleep at all. Drifting in and out of dark dreams, images of Sarah and Alex burned into the back of my eyelids. When morning finally came, I dragged myself out of bed, unsure how to move forward. I had done what I needed to do, confronted her, forced her to face the quiet truth with all the people she wronged. But what now? Work was a blur. Meetings, emails, phone calls. I performed on autopilot, ignoring the worried glances from coworkers. Ron gave me a slight nod in the hallway. Our shared moment of closure from last night's confrontation was all that needed saying. By lunchtime, I couldn't stand the office walls. I told my boss I needed air, ignoring the pity in her eyes. Outside, the sky threatened rain. I walked aimlessly, eventually finding myself by the marina. There she was, my old boat, the same one from that damned video. She looked so harmless bobbing in the water, ropes creaking against the dock. I boarded her slowly, as if stepping onto hallowed ground. Memories flooded me, happy ones, and the images from the video swirling together, a toxic mix. I placed my hand on the railing, the worn wood smooth under my palm. She used to run her fingers over that exact spot, smiling at me. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I was holding. The wind picked up, rocking the boat. I headed inside the small cabin, where I found the old blanket wadded up in a corner. That same checkered blanket featured in the video. A wave of nausea hit me. I grabbed the blanket, marched back onto the deck, and stared at it. Once upon a time, it was just a cozy piece of cloth that kept us warm on chilly evenings. Now, it was a symbol of betrayal. Without hesitation, I hurled it overboard. The water embraced it, dragging it beneath the surface. A moment later, it was gone, swallowed by the waves. That act felt like a purge, but it didn't cure my pain. I still held the memories, the heartbreak, the raw sense of humiliation. I realized that the real blanket I needed to burn was inside me, wrapped around my spirit. I wasn't ready to let that go yet. Maybe I never would be. But at least the tangible reminder was gone. I left the boat and drove aimlessly for a while, ending up at a little beach. The gray sky merged with the gray water, the horizon a single bleak line. I stood there, letting the wind whip at my jacket, thinking about how quickly life can shift from peaceful to vicious. In the distance, gulls cried out, searching for scraps. That was me now, picking at the scraps of my own life, hoping to find something salvageable. I heard my phone ringing in my pocket. I checked the screen. An unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but some instinct told me to pick up. A voice crackled through. "Is this David?" I recognized it after a moment. Alex Freeman. My blood turned to ice in my veins. I pressed the phone against my ear, heart hammering. "Yeah, it's me." My voice came out flat. He paused, probably surprised I didn't slam the phone down. "Listen, I don't want trouble. Sarah's with me. She's not in a good place. I know this is awkward, but awkward." I let out a dry laugh. "You sleep with my wife, rub it in my face, and now you call me because you don't want trouble. Are you serious?" Silence on the line. "Then, I didn't know how else to handle this," he said quietly. "She's having a breakdown. Keeps talking about her father, about you, about the table. She can't stop crying." I braced myself against the biting wind. Anger flared in me, but so did something else. An odd pity, or maybe a twisted sense of triumph that she was finally feeling some regret. "Why are you telling me this?" I demanded. Another pause. "I don't know," he admitted. "I guess, maybe part of me feels guilty. She mentioned that packet of salt. It sounded crazy, but it's haunting her. She asked me to call you. She said she wants to talk. Not sure why, but maybe you can find closure." I let my gaze drift across the ocean. "Closure," I repeated. "Is there such a thing after everything you two did?" He was silent again. I heard the rustling of fabric, maybe him running a hand through his hair. "I just thought you should know. If you want to talk to her, she's at my apartment. If not, fine." I hung up without answering. My pulse hammered so hard it felt like it might burst. The nerve of him to call me, to speak to me about her tears. Did he think this was some kind of twisted therapy session? For a minute, I just stood there on the beach, phone clenched in my hand, debating my next move. Part of me wanted to storm into his apartment, confront them both, maybe punch him in the face. But another part just felt exhausted. I'd already confronted Sarah. We'd already shared that awful silence at the table. What else was there to say? Yet something drew me. A curiosity, maybe, or a final desire to see her face when she truly grasped what she'd done. So I found myself driving back into the city, heart pounding, mind racing. The gray sky opened up, a drizzle tapping against the windshield. My wipers squeaked in protest. I arrived at the address he'd given. An apartment complex near downtown, modern with glass balconies. I parked, climbed the stairs to the second floor, and found unit 212. I hesitated before knocking. My reflection stared back at me in the polished door, a tired man with lines of sorrow etched deep. I raised my fist and rapped on the wood. Alex answered, stepping aside to let me in without a word. His living room was sparse, just a couch, a table with a laptop, some design sketches pinned to the wall. The place smelled faintly of paint thinner and coffee. Sarah was curled up on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, hair a tangled mess, eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she sat up, wiping her face. Alex cleared his throat. "I'll just give you two some space," he muttered, retreating to a side room and shutting the door behind him. I stood there, not moving closer, arms crossed over my chest. She tried to speak, but her words came out in broken bits, so I waited. Her eyes locked on me, full of something I couldn't decipher, remorse, fear, desperation. "I'm sorry," she finally said, voice trembling. "David, I messed up so badly. She let out a shaky breath, tears welling up again. I remained silent. My heart was pounding, but my face was unmoved, my emotions locked down. She covered her mouth with trembling fingers. "I shouldn't have called you here," she whispered, "but I couldn't breathe. It's like everything's caving in on me." The echo of my own words from last night, how I couldn't breathe, hit me like a punch. "Now you know how it feels," I said quietly. She bowed her head. "I do. I ruined everything. This wasn't supposed to happen. I never planned to leave you, but Alex and I. It was just an escape at first. Then it turned into something else. You could have talked to me, I said, biting off each word. You could have told me you were unhappy. Instead, you ran away with him, humiliated me. You abandoned your father, lied to your sister, betrayed Ron, and used the neighbor's silence. You'd left me with a pocket full of salt and no explanation. She flinched at the mention of salt. I know. I hate myself for it. The day I gave you that salt, it felt symbolic, like we were forever. But I lied. I guess I always lie. To myself more than anyone. Her voice cracked, tears sliding down her cheeks. I studied her face. She looked wrecked, so different from the confident, ambitious woman who once commanded a room. My anger warred with pity. What do you want from me now? I asked, stepping closer. Forgiveness. She shook her head. I want to fix the pieces I broke. But I know it's too late. I can't change what I did. I don't even expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to face you without that silence standing between us. I couldn't handle it. I let out a shaky breath. I noticed her bare feet on the hardwood, her chipped nail polish, her messy hair. She looked small, like a child who realized too late the damage she caused. But I wasn't here to pick up her pieces. The silence is all I have left, Sarah, I said. I can't go back to what we were. And I'm not sure I can move forward, either. She buried her face in her hands. I deserve that. I stood there, fists clenched at my sides, wrestling with the need to shout, to unleash everything I felt. But instead I just stared at her. My voice came out dull. You hurt me in ways I can't describe. You took something sacred, our memories, our vows, and you trampled on them. Do you expect me to be the man I was before? She shook her head. No, I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know I'm not proud of what I've done. She paused, tears glistening on her lashes. I went back to see Dad this morning. He wouldn't even look at me. He told me I was selfish. Her voice broke, and she wiped her face again. He's right. I said nothing. We both just stood in that charged silence, the faint hum of the air conditioner, the only noise in the apartment. Minutes passed before I finally spoke. I don't know if you can mend things with your father, or your sister, or Ron. That's on you. As for me, I have no more words, Sarah. I said my piece last night. She nodded slowly, her eyes hollow. I understand. I'm sorry, David. I really am. I turned toward the door, each step feeling heavier than the last. Alex lingered in the hallway, not meeting my gaze as I passed. I paused, a swirl of anger and pity twisting in my gut. For a split second, I wanted to swing a punch at him, but it would accomplish nothing. He wasn't worth the broken knuckles, so I walked out without another word. The hallway felt suffocating. I hit the stairs, descending two at a time, almost stumbling in my haste to leave. My car waited in the parking lot, and I slid into the driver's seat, heart hammering. I pounded the steering wheel once, a guttural sound escaping my throat. Then I sat there, chest heaving, eyes closed, waiting for the storm in my head to calm. It took me a long while to start the engine. When I finally did, I realized I felt lighter somehow. Not happy, not healed, just a tiny bit less weighed down by the unanswered questions. She was sorry. She was broken. But I wasn't there to fix her. She made her choice, and I had to live with the aftermath. A few days later, I found myself organizing that meeting, our final confrontation. The day that ended with me placing the salt packet in front of her like a silent bullet. All of us in that room, eyes burning holes into her. No yelling, no cursing. Just the truth, like an anvil pressing down on her soul. That's what she deserved. And after she walked out, I thought that was it. My closure. Maybe it was. Maybe that's all the closure any of us gets when betrayal slices through our lives. Now, alone in my house, I stand in the darkness once again. scanning the quiet rooms. My phone rests on the table. The packet of salt is gone from my pocket. I gave it back to her. In its place is an emptiness, but it's my emptiness, one I can fill on my own terms. I switch off the lights and move to the bedroom. The silence is back, thick and suffocating. But I'm different now. She can't take anything more from me. My phone pings with a new notification. I glance at it. A short text from Emily, saying she's proud I stood my ground. I sigh and set the phone aside. I peel off my sweater, toss it onto the chair, and slip under the covers. In the darkness, I let out a long, trembling breath. Images swirl. The boat, the blanket, her body with his, that humiliating tick-tock. Then the silent circle around the table, the salt packet between us. My mind flits to her tear-streaked face in Alex's apartment. A rush of conflicting emotions. I remind myself that I survived, that I did what I had to do. All that remains now is a hollow ache where my love used to be, and a slow, steady determination to rebuild my life. I'm older, yes, maybe more broken, but also more awake to the reality that trust can be shattered in a moment. And with that recognition comes a certain freedom. I no longer live under illusions. I inhale, deep and deliberate, letting my body sink into the mattress. The bedroom is silent, the kind of silence that once suffocated me. Now, it simply is. I close my eyes, heart still beating with that dull ache. But in the quiet, I find some measure of peace. My final thought echoes in my mind like a whisper. She's gone, and I'm still here. Then, like a theater where the last line has been spoken, the light goes out. Darkness claims the stage. The story ends.